Good morning, and welcome to Wednesday's Pause for Thought by Father David. Auguste Rodin's famous bronze sculpture, The Thinker, is one of the most famous works of art depicting a nude male figure of considerable size and sitting on a rock with his chin resting on one hand as though deep in thought. The sculpture was originally meant to be part of a monumental bronze doorway, but now sits in the gardens of the Rodin Museum in Paris. The thinker symbolizes the creative mind at work, and although the figure is seated, he's not at rest. He's thinking, contemplating, setting out in his mind future activity. I suspect we've all been doing a lot of thinking over these last few weeks. When lockdown was announced, we probably wondered how on earth we would cope. And now it's being eased, we're still wondering about all that lies ahead, personally and socially. Perhaps one of the gifts of the pandemic is that we've been given space and time to think and to reflect in a way we would not normally do when caught up in the hurly-burly of life and work. Indeed, I have noticed in conversations with people over the last few weeks that invariably we touch on deeper subjects and issues in a way we would not normally do. This should be no surprise when together we're all faced with the seriousness of the pandemic and the huge death toll we've seen in this country. I said that Rodin's The Thinker was probably meant to be part of a bronze doorway, and one theory is that the thinker depicts the Italian poet Dante at the gates of hell, and what he's contemplating is the fate of human beings separated from God and the eternal damnation that awaits them. Is the thinker wrestling within himself as to whether to hold on to God or abandon him with the terrible consequences that would follow? I well remember a young man once telling me that he would rather play safe by believing in God as a kind of insurance policy against being sent to hell. So many people have been damaged by the idea that the choice is either believing in God and behaving properly and being an upright citizen, or being condemned to everlasting punishment. I'm very sad to say that this version of Christianity is still peddled. We've also sadly heard in these days that the pandemic is punishment from God, reminiscent of the 1980s when some people said AIDS was divine judgment and punishment. These thoughts beg the question as to the nature of God, who appears to be a monster and who from time to time indiscriminately inflicts suffering on sections of the world's population while letting other sections go scot-free. As Christians, our thoughts should not be heading in those directions, but rather that God is a God of love and compassion, who is sharing in and alongside us as we live through the pandemic. As God is love and compassion, so we, his people, are called to show that same love and compassion in our lives and care of all affected by this terrible disease. To return to the thinker made of bronze, bronze is an alloy consisting mainly of copper and tin, and though an alloy, it is considered to be of considerable strength. There was a stage in human civilization, the Bronze Age, when bronze was used widely to make tools and weapons because of its strength. Rodin's thinker appears to be a figure of considerable strength, deep in thought and reflection, and perhaps a reminder of the inner strength and resilience that human beings display in times of adversity such as we are currently experiencing. All of us have been required to make huge sacrifices, and this has been far from easy, and yet the overwhelming number of people in our country have complied with the restrictions imposed on us at this time. For many of us, our faith and trust in God has also been and will continue to be a source of strength, enabling us to continue through this particular period of our lives. To end this week's pause for thought, I'm going to quote some words King George VI used in his Christmas Day broadcast in 1939, when Britain was bracing itself for another crisis that was to last 6 years. I said to the man who stood at the gate of the year, "Give me a light that I may tread safely into the unknown." And he replied, "Go out into the darkness and put your hand into the hand of God. That shall be better than light and safer than a known way."